Hi, first graders. It's time for two more stories of My Dog, My Hero. Remember, we have read stories about Smiley, Bear, Munchkin, and Old Dog. Today will be Buster and Blue. I love Buster. He is the bravest and most remarkable dog in the world. If you'd asked me a year ago, I would have told you I didn't like Buster. It's not that Buster's not cute. He's plenty cute. He's a big yellow lab that lives next door. His eyes look up in a sad sort of way. So you're wondering why I didn't like such a cute dog? He ate my toe. I was cutting the grass in my front yard. I'm supposed to wear tennis shoes, but I had on my sandals. My foot slipped under the edge of the mower, and the blade cut off the tip of my toe. I couldn't move. I always freeze like that when something terrible happens. I was standing there staring at my toe when out of nowhere came a yellow streak. Buster! He flew across the yard, grabbed my toe, and ran. That is why I did not like Buster. Last summer, Buster did something to change that forever. It was a hot day, and I was in my front yard pulling weeds. My baby sister Mandy was napping in her stroller beside me. When Mandy is in the yard, Buster keeps an eye on her stroller. Buster has always had a thing for babies. Every time a mother walks by pushing a baby stroller, Buster sits up and he doesn't take his eyes off that stroller until it is out of sight. This day Buster was sitting on his porch watching Mandy and me. I had been pulling weeds for almost an hour and was getting tired. I decided to step inside and pour myself a glass of water. First I checked on Mandy. She was still asleep. I debated whether to drag her stroller up the front steps and in the house while I got my drink. I decided against it. I didn't want to wake her up and listen to her yell for Mama, who had run to the store. I would only be inside a minute. Nothing could happen in that short of time. Buster had been sitting on his porch. Now he was standing. He watched me like he knew what I was going to do. He was giving me a look, like I shouldn't leave Mandy alone. "You're not my mother," I said in an ugly voice. Buster wagged his tail. I put my hands on my hips. "Quit staring! I'm not mowing today. No more toes for you." I yanked open the door. "Watch Mandy while I'm gone," I said. I don't know why I said that. Buster didn't understand me. And even if he did, what was he going to do? He's overweight, and those skinny legs weren't going to carry him anywhere except to grab defenseless toes. Buster walked to the edge of the porch, like he understood me or something. I went inside. It's hard to know what happened next. The garbage man said he lost control, claimed his brakes didn't work right. All I know is that I heard screeching tires. I ran to the window. The garbage truck was barreling down our street, completely out of control. It hit a parked car, then swerved toward a telephone pole across the street. The truck grazed the telephone pole. The wheels jerked left, and the truck headed straight for our yard. I froze. I wanted to run out and grab Mandy, but my legs wouldn't move. I stood there like a statue. A sick feeling washed over me. The truck was seconds away. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a streak of yellow. Buster! He dashed across our yard and jammed his large head into Mandy's stroller. His skinny legs never quit moving. His head hit the stroller and he pushed it into the next yard. The garbage truck bumped over the curb, barely missing Buster, and crashed into our porch. All of a sudden, I could move. I gasped a breath of air and ran outside. The garbage man jumped out of his truck. He said something. I don't remember what it was. I grabbed Mandy out of her stroller and hugged her tight. She yawned. She had slept through the whole thing. I started crying. I don't cry much. I don't know why I did then. I just know that I couldn't have stopped even if I had wanted to. In the middle of hugging Mandy, I felt hot breath on my neck. Buster. I whirled around and grabbed him too. I don't think I have ever hugged anyone harder. I hugged him and scratched him. I think I even kissed him. Buster licked my face. His tail wagged. At that moment, Mom pulled into the driveway. She got out of the car and stared at the truck. Then she dropped her groceries and ran for Mandy and me. It was Mom and Mandy and Buster and me, all rolling around on the ground, hugging and kissing each other. My dad went out that night and bought Buster a steak. After they towed the garbage truck out of our yard, I had lots of yard work to do. Buster came over and sat beside me while I worked. He comes over all the time now. I tell him what I'm doing. He listens. Mandy loves him too, even though she doesn't know he saved her life. I kept the newspaper article for her. My toe used to remind me how much I didn't like Buster. Now it reminds me how close we are. Buster risked his own life to save Mandy. He is my hero, and Mandy's hero, and our whole family's hero. The next story is Blue. Speak, Blue, speak. I bet I said that 1,000 times when I first got the dog, but Blue would not bark. He never barked. I mean never. If Blue wanted a thing, he'd find some other way to let you know. Like if he wanted to come inside the house, he would scratch at the door. There were scratch marks in the wood, but I never cared. Looked to me like it's a compliment to a house if the dog wants to come in and be with everybody. Blue got his name because his mom was a full-blooded blue tick hound. We never figured out who the father was, but Blue had the look of his mom. Anyway, to get to the story, that morning, this was September, a Friday, I went into the woods. I took 2 things with me, my dog and my chainsaw. What I was going to do was cut down some tree branches that Mama said were cutting off her view of the lake. He refers to his wife in this story as Mama. It's not his mama, it's his wife, but he calls her Mama. I spent about 2 hours sawing a limb here, a limb there. I was standing at the edge of the lake, squinting up at the house. It was way up on the hill, and I decided there was just one more tree in the way of Mama's view of the lake. I whistled for Blue to let him know I was about ready to head for home. I never knew exactly where Blue was in the woods because he didn't bay or bark the way most hounds do. I figured he got his silence from his daddy. Anyway, in about 2 minutes, Blue showed up. He had dirt on his nose, and I figured he'd been digging. I walked up the hill a little ways to the offending tree. I cranked up my chainsaw, raised it, whacked the limb. I had in mind letting the chainsaw swing down away from my leg. I'd done it 100 times like that. But I don't know what went wrong this time. Maybe I was tired. Anyway, it happened so fast I was helpless. The saw came right down on my leg and cut all the way into the bone. I dropped to the ground. Blood was pumping out of my leg. I never saw so much blood. I must have cut an artery. I grabbed my leg and held it tight, and the blood stopped pumping full tilt. But blood was still squeezing out between my fingers. And when I let go of the leg the least little bit to get a better hold, blood pumped some more. I don't mind admitting, I was scared. I was over a half-mile from home. I could call for help, but I had screamed when the chainsaw hit me, and Mama hadn't heard that. I could start crawling, but that looked like a long half-mile, and it was all uphill. And not flatland either. Boulders and gullies, and me having to use both hands to stop the bleeding. Well, I looked up, and there was Blue. I said, "Blue, get Mama." He looked at me like he didn't understand. I said it again, "Blue, get Mama." He went a few steps up the hill, but he didn't look happy about it. The dog knew I was in trouble, and he didn't want to leave. I said it again, hard this time. "Blue, get Mama." He turned and started for the house. He never looked back, and I lost sight of him in the trees. I waited. I didn't have a lot of hope, because the way I figured it, Blue would go to the door, scratch to be let in, and that would be the end of it. Mama wouldn't think anything was wrong. As I lay there, I felt myself getting weaker. I felt like I was about to faint, and I knew if I fainted, that would be the end of me. And then as I lay there, dying, I thought I heard something I had never thought to hear in my lifetime. What do you think he heard, first graders? Blue barking. It sounded far, far away up at the house, and it was the sweetest sound I ever heard in my life. When Mama heard Blue barking, she went straight to the phone and called 911. She said, I don't know exactly what the trouble is, but my husband went out with the chainsaw and only the dog came back and he's barking his head off. The rescue squad came, got there in less than 10 minutes, and Blue showed them the way to where I lay. They tied up my leg and carried me up the hill on a stretcher. So the way I figure it is this. If a hero is somebody that saves a person's life, then Blue is a hero. Thinking back on it, I'm glad he wasn't a barker. I'm glad he saved his barking for when it was really needed. I wouldn't be standing here today if he hadn't. Thank you. The last two stories are Little Bit and Dopey. Have a good day. Bye.